So we're now live. Welcome everyone. We'll just give it a few minutes for other people to join and then we'll start. Okay, so I think we'll start. I'm sure people will join as they see that I'm going live, hopefully. And for those that can't make the live video, can obviously leave questions in the YouTube comments and also can reach out to me after via Twitter or any other means. So yeah, welcome to the first episode in what I like to call the knowledge transfer with Kelvin, and the whole point of this is to actually share my knowledge with everybody, that with the community basically. So everybody on YouTube, everybody that follows me on my blogs, Twitter, etc. I've had a lot of feedback from people from the previous interview I did with Duan, shout out. And you know, it looks like people actually want to see videos like this and more interaction with other networking engineers and, you know, Aspire engineers. So this is the whole point. I want to try and actually, you know, create that sense of you know, create that community, and hopefully we can all, you know, get together, share ideas, and, you know, we can lab together essentially. And yeah, so this is the first video that I'm going to be doing, switch security and device access. Now this is what I plan on doing, is videos based on beginner level. So we're going to cover things like CCNA security, CCNA routing and switching material, CCNP, CCIE topics. So there's going to be, I plan on doing videos that, you know, meet everybody's needs, no matter what kind of level you're coming in at. So hopefully everybody finds this useful. The reason I call it knowledge transfer is because, you know, yeah, it's sort of like training, but, you know, really what I'm trying to achieve here is trying to show you guys what, you know, all the knowledge that I've acquired, and, you know, maybe a few tips and tricks, etc. And the whole point of this is so we can learn together. You know, there might be some things that I miss or some things that I don't do, and, you know, you guys can kind of throw it out to me there live. And if you guys are watching the recordings, you can also, like I say, leave a comment, and, you know, we can keep that community spirit going. So I've got the hashtag NetworkWizKids because hopefully that's what you guys are. You know, you guys are feeling this for 2018. You know, bit of inspiration. Hopefully, you know, help you guys work towards some certifications. And I've also included, you know, a few links to my YouTube channel, my Twitter, and also my blog, where I also post a lot of things. So, you know, feel free to reach out to me on any of those. I just want to point out, I'm actually going to do something that's quite different with this series. And what I'm going to do is, after every single series I do, I'm actually going to post the video on my blog, but I'm also going to post a quiz as well. And it's just a little bit of fun to see how you know, you guys get on, and see if you actually listen to what I was kind of showing you guys in that particular video. So it's a little bit of fun, so hopefully you guys can take part in that. So without further ado, let's get started. So today's topology, it's like I said, this is a basic session today. So we're talking, you know, this is aimed at everybody that's maybe coming into networking for the first time, or not really familiar with Cisco technologies and CLI. So, you know, I really wanted to throw out a mix there to suit everybody's needs. So apologies for the slightly blurry picture. It's a screenshot that I took. But yeah, so today we're going to be focusing on this topology. We have the router, which is going to be acting as our gateway. We have a switch, and we also have a machine. It was an Ubuntu machine, but I actually changed it to a Windows 7 machine because I had a few problems with the virtual machine that I had. And what we're going to do is we're going to run through these configuration steps that I've marked down here. So going from the top, we're going to give the devices a name and configure a banner. We're going to shut down all unused ports and put them in an unused VLAN. Now that's very important from a security aspect. And then we're going to disable HTTP services and enable HTTPS services. Again, from a security point of view, this is rather important, as HTTP is clear text. And then we're going to move on to configure all interface IP addresses and VLANs. And after that, we're going to configure device local username and password. We're going to configure the passwords for control and VTY lines so that we can access, hopefully, the switch from the PC. We're going to configure then port security, which is a really handy feature for Cisco iOS. So for those that haven't come across that yet, hopefully you find that quite useful. And after that, no configurations are complete without verifying your configurations. And I've put here verify configurations before saving, because in the real world, if you're configuring networks and configuring devices, you know, you might know what configurations you're doing and you might know what the configurations do, but it just might take that one slight slip of a finger and you get a command wrong. And if you then go ahead and write the configuration changes to memory and save those configurations, and then you realize you've made a mistake, you know, it might be too late. You might not be able to save that. So it's very important to verify configurations before saving. Then we'll, of course, go ahead and save the device configurations. And I've also then put some verification commands and checks that we can do. So we're going to run through a few of these commands just to kind of show you what they're doing, show you what information we can get from these commands. And hopefully this gives you a better insight as to how things like port security works and you know, VLANs in general, etc. So that's pretty much it for this session today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the CLI. There we go. And we're going to kick it off. So if I just get my other screen. So we're going to start by configuring devices. So we're going to configure a banner and we're going to configure device names. Now, I don't need to actually configure, because I'm using GNS3, it works slightly different to those that are only familiar with Packet Tracer. So I don't really need to configure the actual device names, but what I can do is I can run through actually configuring the device names and how you do it. It's a really straightforward command and you shouldn't have any problems doing that. So if I was to go into global configuration, so that conft is configure terminal, and if I wanted to call this router 1 instead of R1, what I would do is I would type hostname then router 1, and as you can see, hopefully you can see that now the host name is changed to router 1 instead of R1. Okay, really straightforward. So again, we'll do the same with the switch. So we'll call it host name and we'll give this switch 1. And it's as simple as that. So now that we've done that, we're going to configure a banner. Now, in production environments, this is really important. I mean, I've not come across a production network or production devices that actually don't have banners configured, and they're actually quite important to businesses as well. And the reason being is because, you know, you want to ensure that people accessing the system, they know that this is a restricted system and that only certain people should have access to that system. And if you are somebody that doesn't have the required permissions to be accessing a system legitimately, then, you know, you could be you could basically face a lot of charges and be in big trouble. So we'll go ahead and we'll configure a banner. So to do that, we'll do banner MOTD, which is message of the day, which that stands for. I think it actually tells you if I do question mark. Yeah, it does. So we can see there, banner MOTD is set message of the day banner. So again, that's really straightforward. What we can do is do banner MOTD, and we could do this system is restricted, and then we could do show banner MOTD, and as we can see there, we can now see that we have a banner which says this system is restricted. So next time we come to log into this device, it will tell us, it'll basically show us that message of the day. So we'll do the same for router 1 again. Oops. The system is restricted. And again, it's pretty straightforward. You can do, when you're in global configuration, as you can see, I'm doing do show instead of show. Now, when you're in global configuration, which I am, you cannot issue the show command on iOS the same way you would where you're not in privileged exec. So if you see there, it don't work. Whereas if we exit out of global configuration, now we can do a show banner MOTD. And there we go, we can see that now it don't give us the invalid input detected. So yeah, that's another good little tip that you can use so that you don't have to keep flicking back between global and privileged exec. You can just use the do show command, and then you can, you know, issue the show commands that you want to issue. As you can see, there's a lot on this device here. Anyway, moving on. So we have now, let's go back to the presentation. So we've now configured device names and configured a banner. Now what we're going to do is shut down all unused ports and put them in an unused VLAN. So as I said earlier, this is quite important that you shut down unused ports and put them in an unused VLAN. And the reason why is because it's okay shutting down unused ports, but if you leave them on a VLAN that's actually utilized for, you know, within a data path, then if somebody really wanted to access the device and bring up an interface, then they could do so. And you know, with that interface still being in the data VLAN, essentially, it could have access to the network. So what we're going to do is we're essentially black holing the traffic, or the VLAN, sorry. So we'll do that now. So as you can see, we've got the picture of the topology on top there. So the only interfaces that we're using in this topology is Ethernet 01 and Ethernet 00, which is connecting to router 1. So all the other interfaces, so if we do is show interface IP, oh wait a minute, that's the ASA, show IP interface brief. Oops. We can see now all the interfaces that we have on this device. So as I said, we're only using Ethernet 00 and 01. So all the interfaces from 02 to 33 we're actually going to shut down and put in an unused VLAN. As you can see, we've only got VLAN 1, so I'm going to go ahead first and create an unused VLAN. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to give my VLAN 999. Okay, so exit out of that. So if we do a show IP interface brief, oops, it'll put that. Wait a minute. Oops, wrong one. I brought that one up so I can come out of that, and we can get rid of that one because we don't need that. Interface brief. And as you can see there, now we have VLAN 999. So we can change that name by entering VLAN 99, and we should see a command here, just here, if you question mark, saying name. So we can give this VLAN a name. So let's give this VLAN a name of black hole. Now if we exit out of there and then we do a show IP interface brief again, we can see now that we, oops, wait a minute, that's not, if we do a show run, yep, sorry, do show VLAN brief. You can see that now we have our name on VLAN 999. So going back, do show IP interface brief. All these interfaces here that we're not using, we're now going to put into the black hole VLAN. So some of you might be thinking, well, do you have to do this one interface at a time, or can you, is there somewhere to group the interfaces and put them in there at once? So as we can see up here, all the interfaces are currently assigned to the default VLAN, VLAN 1. We need to move some of these interfaces over to now VLAN 999. And you can do that by grouping them. So the way to do that is interface range, and then we're going to group Ethernet 02 to 3, then comma, then you can carry on. Yeah, you should be, yeah, you can carry on. So we could do Ethernet 10 to 13. I think that should work. Let me just, yeah, so that works. So we'll start off with them ones first. So what we'll do then is we'll do switch port mode access, because I don't think with this being a layer 3 switch, these might actually be in a dynamic state. So we'll just switch them to an access port, and we'll do switch port access VLAN 999. So now if we do a do show VLAN brief, we can see now that these interfaces that we grouped together, and now they're now being black holed. So we do still have a couple more interfaces that we're going to do, so we're going to do them now. So it'll be these ones here. So again, the command is interface range, or int for short, and we need to group Ethernet 20 to 3, and then we need to do Ethernet 03 to 3, and that should be it. So again, we'll do switch port mode access, and then we'll do switch port access VLAN 999, and done. So now if we do a do show VLAN brief, so now we can see, oops, them ones don't seem to have moved, so we'll have to move them ones again. but we can see that some of the other ones have actually moved over, so I'll just do that quickly. Interface range Ethernet 3.0. Yeah, I think I missed that actually. To 3.3. Switch port mode access. Switch port access VLAN 999. Do show VLAN brief. And there we go. So we can see now that the unused interfaces, as per our topology, have been moved to the black hole VLAN, and they should already be shut down, but we can verify that by doing do show. So in fact they're actually all up. So what we'll do is, again, we need to shut down. With it being a switch, they actually are all up here, so we actually need to go ahead and shut all these down now. So just to save time, what I'll do is I'll do the ranges again. That the one. Yep. And we'll shut them down. And hopefully I don't get confused doing this here. Yep, so I've done that one. Shut down them ones, and we should have one last one to shut down, which is this one. Okay, cool. So now we can see that we've administratively shut down all these unused ports. The only two ports that are active are the two ports that we're going to be using for this lab, which is what we want. So if we head back over now to our configuration states, we can see that now we've shut down all the unused ports and we've put them in an unused VLAN, and we've verified that, and we've also verified that the ports are shut down as well. Now we can move on to disabling HTTP services and enabling HTTPS. Now, the reason I've included this configuration step from a security point of view is that by default this service is enabled on Cisco iOS devices, and it allows you to connect to the device over port 80, which is HTTP, and by default this is, well, it is not by default, it is clear text, so it's not really secure and should be avoided, especially on production networks. So if you are to use or if you need to access the device over HTTP, then you'd rather do it over HTTPS, which is secure. Okay, so we'll flip back now to our topology. And what we can do is we can actually verify HTTP is enabled. So we'll do show IP HTTP server status, I believe it is. Yep. And yep. So we can see, oh, in fact this is disabled. Authentication is enabled. And HTTP server is disabled, and we can see secure server status is also disabled. So this is actually disabled, it's not enabled, so we don't need to worry about that on this particular device, in fact. But if we was to actually disable the HTTP service, so what we could do in fact is we could do IP HTTP server, and what this does, as you can see, I did a question mark there, and that was the only command I could write there. So this should have enabled the HTTP server now. So if we do the same again, we can now see that HTTP server status is showing as enabled over port 80. So we should be able to, once the device has an IP address, a management IP address, etc., we should then be able to connect to this device via HTTP. But as I said in the configuration steps, we need this disabled, so we'll do no IP HTTP server, and I believe the command for secure server is IP HTTP. Yeah, it's there, secure server, and there you go. So what it's done there is actually generated some RSA keys, because we didn't have any generated, and I was actually going to need to do, I would need to do that later on in the configurations for SSH. But what that's actually done now is generated some keys. So if we just up arrow and we do the same again, so we can have a look and see if it's enabled, we can actually see that. Where is it? There it is. So we can see that it's enabled, and the default port that it's using is 443. Okay, and it also has a bunch of cipher suites, etc. as well. So we've enabled that, and we've disabled HTTP server. So we'll flip back, and now what we need to do is we need to configure all the interface IP addresses and VLANs. So flicking back to our topology and looking at the top, we can see that we're using, for data traffic, we're going to be using VLAN 50, and our switch has an IP address of 192.168.1.2, and it's a /24 network, which means it's a 255.255.255.0 network. Okay, which allows us to use 254 hosts on the network. And our default gateway, so that on the switch is going to be the management IP address that we're using for today. And we can see that default gateway for our network is 192.168.1.1/24, and that's on router 1. And we can see that our host also has an IP address. So we'll start with the Windows machine, and we'll give this an IP address. So let me just open this. There we go. Well, let me just flip back. So we can see that we're using 192.168.1.10. So we'll enter this into the client, 192.168.1.10. And as I said, /24 network is 255.255.255.0, and our default gateway is going to be 192.168.1.1. We'll just verify that on our topology. Yep, 1.1. DNS servers do not matter for, I'll just leave them blank, does not matter for this topology. So we don't need to deal with that. So we'll just press OK and OK again. And we won't have any received, and we won't be able to ping anywhere yet because we haven't configured the other devices upstream. So I'll just open that command prompt there just for later on. And now what we'll do is we'll switch back and we'll configure the switch. So do show VLAN brief. As you can see, we've only got two VLANs. We've got VLAN 1 and we have the black hole VLAN. Now, as I mentioned earlier, VLAN 1 is the default VLAN, and it's not recommended that you use the default VLAN for any traffic whatsoever. So it is recommended that you change that. So as per my topology, we're going to be using VLAN 50. So we'll call VLAN 50 data VLAN. We'll exit out of that. And as you can see, there's two. When you create the VLAN 50 and you give it a name, you need to enter the command VLAN followed by the VLAN number. And then you can do, let's just go back into that. There's limited commands that you can do in here. Shut down, etc. And when you go into the actual interface VLAN 50, it should bring then the interface up automatically, as it's just done then. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it an IP address of 192.168.1.2, and as I said, it's not shut down. So we'll exit out of there, and we also need to make sure that because this is a layer 3 switch that I'm using, I also need to make sure that interface Ethernet 01 is actually set to an access an access port. So what we could do is show interface Ethernet 01 switch port, which is a really good command. And as we can see, it's actually not an access port, it's set to dynamic. So what we'll do, switch port mode access, and as we can see there, we've actually changed the administrative mode now to a static access. And there is also one more thing that we need to do, because it's operating on VLAN 50. We now need to put that on VLAN 50. So we'll do switch port access VLAN 50. Simple. So now if we do show VLAN brief, we can now see that for our data VLAN, we now have Ethernet 01 in there, which is this interface here on the topology, which is what we want. Okay. Okay, so moving on, we'll quickly give the router an IP address. So this is going to be using IP address 192.168.1.1/24 again. No shutdown. And if I just flick back to interface Ethernet 00, I do no shut just to confirm that it's not down. What we can do now is go over to the PC and we'll try issue a ping to 192.168.1.2. As we can see, we're getting a reply from the actual machine itself, so that's not working. So this is good, so we can have a look at and try and see why it's not working. So if we do a few verification commands, so again, if we do show interface Ethernet 01, in fact we'll do switch port, we can see that it's accessed. We can see that it's accessing the data VLAN on VLAN 50. Okay, so we can see that that's working. So okay, so you might be thinking, well, okay, what's going on here? Let's try and understand why we can't actually ping our device yet. So if we could actually do a show run just to show the all configurations of the switch. So we can see that Ethernet 01 is in VLAN 50, which is what we want, and Ethernet 02, which is not used. Ethernet 01 is the interface connecting to route 1, and we can see that interface VLAN 50 has got an IP address, but you can see some here. It's actually showing that it's shut down. So interesting. Okay, so if we do a show IP interface brief, we can see that VLAN 50 is administratively down. VLAN 99 is what we want to be down, but VLAN 50 we need it to be up. So now we can see, now that I entered interface VLAN 50, we can see that now by issuing the same command again, it's now up. So let's try again. We'll just switch over there. And now you can see that we can ping the switch, what we are calling the management interface on 192.168.1.2. So a nice bit of troubleshooting there. One thing to watch out for though is that on a production environment, it's not really ideal that you run the show run command, because there could be thousands of lines of configuration, especially when you're looking at firewalls, etc. And by doing this, you could be decreasing the performance of the actual box. So it is advised that you try and avoid the do show run or the show run command when you can, and actually try and narrow down what you're actually searching for. So I mean, what I could have done there, I mean, there's a few commands I could have done there. Instead of doing a show run, we could have done do show interface. What interface was it? VLAN 50. And we could have seen here. So straight away we've got to what we want in. You know, we're not doing a show run and getting thousands of lines of output for when we don't need it. We can actually just do a few commands, even one command like that, and we can see, we would have been able to see there whether that interface was up or down. Okay, so that helps. So what we'll do now is we'll try and ping the gateway. Let's see if we can try ping the gateway. Let me just get my machine on here. So ping 192.168.1.1. So we can see that this is down, or we can't get there at least. So let's have a look at this. So we'll switch back to our configuration. We'll have a look at the router. So our interface is Ethernet 00. So we'll do show IP interface. And we can see that the interface is up. We can see that we have an IP address of 1.1/24, correct mask there. So everything seems to be fine on there. So let's see if it's something to do with the switch. So we can see that the interface is up as well. Do switch port. Do show IP. Do show interface Ethernet 00 switch port. Operational mode is static access, but the administration mode is dynamic auto. So what we could do is we could do interface Ethernet 00, and we'll go switch port mode access, and let's see now. Let's move over to this. And as you can see, it's still not working, so there must be something else that's going on there. Okay, so have a think what it is, and we'll continue with the troubleshooting while we do. So again, just for lab purposes, we'll do a show run. So we can see our interface is up. Our VLAN's there. So why is it not working? Okay. So if we do show IP interface brief again, and what I'll do is interface VLAN So I'll tell you what, let's have a little bit of fun. So what we'll do is actually let's try and play with this interface that's connecting to row 1. So we'll do interface Ethernet 00. And let's see if we did this. Let's see if it works. Because if we have a look on, I don't know if it's still there, but if we have a look here on Ethernet 00, this was accessing VLAN 1, the default VLAN. But the thing with that, if you look further down, or was it further up? Yeah, further down here, VLAN 1 disabled. So why don't we go ahead and try and see if this works now. And voila! So you see now we can ping the router, which is our default gateway. So what I wanted to do there is try demonstrate a little bit of a method, if you like, in troubleshooting or trying to investigate when things don't work, how to navigate around the command line. So hopefully that little basic few steps that I did there helps a lot of you guys that are new to this. So okay, moving on then, we'll go back to this configuration step. So we've now done all 4 steps up until, so we just configured the IP addresses and VLANs. Now what we're going to do is we're going to configure passwords for consoles and VTY lines. But before I do that, let me just jump over to the, see if there's any questions. Just give me a second. Okay. So quite a few of you watching, I appreciate that. Shout out to Juan. Yes sir. Hello to MNAK Tech Tips. I saw your session with Juan. Appreciate it. I hope that you liked our session that we did, our interview, and you know, this is a kind of follow on you know, that we, or at least I plan to give you guys. Hopefully you like it. Hi to Otto. Very impressed, thank you. Is the topic URPF? No. So unicast reverse path forwarding is a slightly more advanced topic, and that normally comes in when you start looking at the CCNP routing and switching and security tracks. So for instance, I am doing quite a lot, in fact, with that, with the CCI security at the minute. So that's a more advanced topic. Hopefully we can kind of cover that another day if that's what you're looking for. Sup Kelvin? Hey Albert, watching with the granddaughter right now, so can't really lab, but great time to watch vids. Well, hopefully you're both liking them. Hopefully you're enjoying the content so far. And hello to virals.tv. Alright, cool. Okay, so let's carry on then. So now we're going to configure a device local username and password. So this is, we're going to do this on the switch, and this is not normally, I mean, you do have, in production environments, you do have at least one administrator kind of username and password if everything goes wrong or you can't contact, say, a TACACS or Radius server for external authentication. But generally you don't just use on the box local accounts to manage the devices. But for lab purposes, we're going to do this now. So we're going to configure a password for the console and VTY lines, and we're going to configure local username and password. The reason that we need the local username and password as well is so that we can actually access the switch via the VTY lines as well. So we're going to configure username by typing username, and we're going to call this, we'll call this WizKids. And we're going to configure a password. This is a K9 image that I'm using. However, I cannot use a secure password, or the secure password that I'd like to use anyway. But I'll look to cover, I think in fact I've covered some of this in terms of the passwords on some of my CCNA security videos on my YouTube channel, so be sure to check those out. So what we're going to do though is we'll configure a secret, and we can see now the types of hashing that we can use. So we've got unencrypted, which is 0, we've got MD5, we've got PBKDF2, and we've got script hash. So let's just, for lab purposes, we'll use script. And now you can see I press question mark. This is actually going to be the hidden string, so this is the password. So let's do the password. Oops, apologies. Yep, apologies. Let me switch that back. Sorry about that. So yeah, let's go through it. Let's just go through this again. Let me delete that. Sorry, I didn't switch it from the PDF back to the lab. So as I was saying, you've probably just heard it anyway, but as I was saying, I think I've covered some of this stuff in regards to passwords on some of my CCNA security videos, so have a quick look at those. We may cover them again in in some labs in the future, but for now we're going to do username just by simply typing username, and we're going to call this WizKid or WizKids. And if you specify password, in fact, let's do question mark. So this says if I write password, we're going to specify the password for the user. So what's the difference then between secret? So we're going to specify secret for the user. So by default, the password, if we specify that, it's not going to be encrypted. Now, me being a security consultant and on the security track and very security focused, security is massive, so don't ever skimp out on security. Wherever you can implement security and it makes sense to do so, then do so. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to encrypt that straight away. In fact, what we'll do is we'll call one admin, and we'll do it with normal password, and we'll call this, we'll give the password Cisco. And we'll do show run the users. In fact, it will do show run. Do show run. Yeah, there. As you get more familiar with the CLI as well, you'll start to use things like this, a pipe we call it. And then you can specify, when you're using pipe, you can kind of just narrow down to what you're looking for straight away. So we can use append, begin, count, exclude, format, include, redirect, section, and T. So what I did is use section, then I'm looking for the users, and as we can see now, we've created the username, admin, and password, which by default give it the 0, which means it's not encrypted, and we can see the password, which is Cisco. So obviously this is not secure, because if somebody gains access to this device, you know, all you have to do is do a show run and you can see the administrator password, and then you'll be able to, you know, a malicious actor could then essentially change the password for that user, and if that were the only user on it could lock everybody out, and only the attacker could have access then to the device. So it could pretty much render your device useless. So you need to be able to make sure that, you know, that's being hashed. So to do that, we'll do username, and we'll do WizKids, and we'll do secret, and we'll do, just for lab purposes, we'll give it Cisco. And again, if I do the same command, now you can see the difference. So we've got unencrypted, and this is using 5, which is MD5, I believe. Yep. So if you can see here, we're using MD5 hashing. So again, not the best, but it's there. And as you can see, we're using salts, which is part of the hashing. If you've not learned about salting yet, take a look into that and you'll understand what I mean by this here. But that's essentially the password Cisco. So we'll go with that for now. And now that we've done that, let's flip back to our presentation. And I can see some more questions coming in. I'll just continue with the lab for now, then I'll answer all the questions now at the end, and we'll get through this. So we configured the local username and password. Now I'm going to configure passwords for the console and VT wireline. Okay, so to do that, let's not get stuck on the PDF again. Let's move back to the CLI. To do this, we're going to do line con 0, which is line console 0. And we're going to use password. And again, we've got two options here, unencrypted or specify hidden password. So we'll do hidden password. And it's going to be Cisco. Oops. Invalid encrypted password. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. That's not right. Do Cisco 1 2 3. Let me just do show run section password Cisco 1 2 3. So yeah, we can see there that that's not encrypted, but if we do, in fact, what we'll do this after. We'll continue. Now that we've done console, we'll do line. We'll do the VTY, the virtual terminal lines, and we'll do 1 to 4. Okay. Oh, my fault. I'm doing that. Silly. Or reading the CLI rather than what I know. Okay, so we'll do password, and we'll do Cisco 1 2 3 again is what we give the console, didn't we? So again, we'll do show, and as you can see, these are unencrypted. So there is a command to encrypt. Let's just have a look. All in one. However, it's not the securest method. So as you can see, if we do a show, so that's our secret. That's unencrypted. However, we're going to encrypt that now. And if we look at the passwords on the VT wirelines and console, we'll see that these are unencrypted as well, so Cisco 123 and Cisco 123. So we'll do service password encryption, and this will encrypt, not with the most secure, but will encrypt the passwords. So again, if we do in fact, I'll just up arrow, we can see now that what I was trying to do in the first place with the password 7, that it's actually done that for us for even the admin one now, which you can see here. So that's actually, this command here will actually obscure, if you like, I won't call it the most secure method, so I'll just say obscure your clear text passwords. So anybody that's looking over your shoulder, it's not immediately obvious what is going on. But again, these passwords can be cracked. I have a post on my blog, synac.co.uk. It should be in the link of this video as well, and I actually go through the way of how you can actually do that. So going back to the presentation, we have now configured passwords for console and VTY lines. Now we're going to configure port security, which is a really good feature on Cisco iOS. So looking at our topology, this gets a little bit fun now here from the boring setting passwords, etc. However, for those that are new to this, you know, you might not have known some of that stuff, so it's, you know, still quite handy. But port security is a lot more fun, and we can do a lot more verification commands, etc. So in this scenario now, what we're going to actually do, or what I'm going to do, is we're going to enable port security on Ethernet 01, and we're only going to allow that PC's MAC address to communicate on that port. Now if we then take that device from that port and put another device in, hopefully we should be able to see that the port then shuts down, goes into an error disabled, if you like, and shuts down. So we're going to do that now anyway. So we're going to interface Ethernet 01. In fact, before I do that, let me just, yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that for now. I was going to do something else, but we'll do that for now. So we're going to interface Ethernet 01. And to enable port security, as we'll see, do show interface Ethernet 01. Have I done that? No, do show interface. Is it switch port? Yep, switch port. So we've got stuff to do with private VLANs. We've already seen that we're in VLAN 50. In fact, do so in fact, yeah, before we do that, I just want to show you. So if we look on, where is it? Let me change to this presentation really quick. And if we do on here, show port security, here, this command here is what I was looking for. If we do that, we can then first verify that port security isn't even enabled. So we'll do port security Ethernet 01. Okay, so for this interface now, we can see that port security is disabled. So the command that we issued there was show port security, then the interface. So Where is it? Oh, sorry, it's there, not that one. Yep, so do show port security interface Ethernet 01. And then we can see straight away on a port whether port security is enabled. And with the do show port security, this shows us if port security is enabled for, you know, all interfaces, not just that one interface. So yeah, we can see that it's disabled. We can see that the default mode is shut down. So what this mode is basically once port security is enabled, if a violation occurs, and the violation is that if by default you're only allowed maximum one MAC address to be registered to that port, and that's by default, you can change that, and that's something very important to point out, and you'll see why for those that are going to take my little quiz on my blog later on. You'll see why that's important, so take note of that. So going back, if only one device is allowed to be registered to this port, and you then plug a new device into that port with a different MAC address, what's going to happen is the violation is going to occur, and then the interface is going to shut down. So it's going to go into something what we call an ERR disabled mode, error disabled mode. Okay, and we'll go through, we'll do that actually, we'll show, so we can see that the last MAC address obviously is disabled, so it's not on there. This should change, and we can also see the violation counts as well, which is quite cool. So we're going to do this, we're going to mess the port up after we've enabled it, and we're going to change some stuff, and we're just going to play about and see what happens. So let's start by enabling port security. So to enable port security, so we do switch port security, and that's it. So it's important that you do this command, because what you could do is you could keep configuring with these commands here, switch port security, and carry on. But the problem being is that all these commands you're putting in, they will not be enabled until you enter that command switch port security, which enables port security. So if we do have a look at port security on this interface again, wow, now we can see that it's changed. So we can see port security is now enabled. The status is up. So if we look at the status before, it was secure down. Now it's secure up. We can see that the violation mode is still the same, which is shut down. As I said, that's default. You can change that. We can see agent times. We can see secure static addressing is disabled. We can see, as I mentioned, maximum MAC address is 1. This can be changed. Total MAC address that's being registered is 1. So we're not allowed a different MAC address to this one here. So this is the MAC address that's being registered. And we haven't got sticky MAC addresses, which is dynamic learning of MAC addresses yet. And we can see that we haven't had a violation yet. So this is cool. So now what we can do is we're going to actually mess up this topology, and we're going to put something else in there and see what happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly take off this interface, and if I get a different device, just bear with me a minute. Let me get a virtual device. Just bear with me while I find the device. There we go. And for those that are new to GNS3 or not used it yet, you know, do give it a go. Do give it a try. And if you have any questions, reach out to me and hopefully I can help. So what we're going to do now, looking at the command line, we're going to plug that back into that same port, and because the device is turned off yet, we're not going to see the log message. So what we'll do now is we'll turn on this device, which I've just done there, and we'll see what happens. I'll just console that up as well. So I'll just switch back to that. and let's have a look. So it must not have occurred yet, so maybe I need to give this an IP address. So let's just say IP address 192.168.1.11/24 with the gateway of 1.1. And we can see now, as I mentioned, that the port has changed. Now we've got a log message saying error disabled, ERR disabled, which means error disabled. Port security violation error detected on Ethernet 01, and now it's put Ethernet 01 into error disabled state. Now for John, who thought he were clever plugging in his Xbox into his work's computer Ethernet, has now just locked himself out of the network and now needs to contact administration or the networking team to actually get this port brought back up. And until then, he can't do any work. So this is, you know, a perfect scenario whereby port security can be handy. It can stop people plugging into any port and accessing a network. You can lock it down by MAC addresses. You can lock it down by static MAC addresses, or dynamically learning only a select amount of MAC addresses. So it's very useful with, you know, other security features in place as well. So it also tells us which MAC address. So we could then, as the networking team, we could ask John. We could say what happened. John could say, oh, I don't know what's happened, and then we could actually jump onto the device, and we could then, with other tools as well, we could probably try and work out what this device is that's actually being plugged in. So then we could find out that John's not being totally honest with us, and, you know, explain to him what's happened and why it's happened. So as we can see, now the port has changed to down, so the port's being disabled. So let's just issue this command again. So we can see that the port is shut down now. Port security is still enabled because it's on. Violation mode shut down, and we can see that the violation count's actually gone up as well. Okay, and we can see that the last source address VLAN, was that one, which is, funny enough, that one. Okay, so this port is now shut down. So if we just do show port security, we can see now that this is shut down, and we can also verify that do show interface Ethernet 01. We can see that line protocol is down, error disabled. So you might be asking, well, how do we actually get this interface back up? And it's quite simple. All we need to do is well, first of all, what we need to do is we need to remove this device, tell John to stop messing about, and then we can plug back in our normal device. And by plugging back in the normal device, that doesn't automatically say to the switch, right, my normal device MAC address is back in, bring the port back up. No, we need to manually re-enable that. However you can change that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a shut. So shut for shutdown, and we're going to do a no shutdown. And this should then bring the port out of error disabled. So if we do a show port security, oops, a minute, Ethernet 1. So it's secure up enabled, and we can see that last source address is none at the minute. So let me just flick back to the Windows 7 machine, and let's just verify. So yeah, we can ping again, which is good. So yeah, but as you can see there now that we've actually got the MAC address registered again, and the port is back up now, which is good. So we can do show port security, current address 1, current address allowed. We can see that it's 1, which is what we want. So that's done. So if we wanted to, let me just flick back to, we're almost done with the presentation. I did want to show you accessing devices via SSH, etc., but we can do that in another lab another day. I think we've covered enough for one day, especially for the beginners. What we could do though before we finish off is we can actually change or show you how to allow dynamic addresses, and you can also increase the MAC addresses allowed on a port. So to do that, we'll do switch port security, and if you do question mark, we've got a couple of options. So we could do secure MAC address. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to either put in the 48-bit MAC address, a static address, or we can configure sticky dynamic addresses. We'll leave that for now. So what we're going to do is we can do maximum, and this is where you change the allowed devices on that port. So we'll change this to 5, just like that. There's no else after that command, so we'll change that to 5, and we'll do switch port port security MAC address sticky, and this is dynamic learning. And we can also take a look at the violations, the different violations. So there is different violations. So we've got protect, restrict, and shutdown. So by default, like I said, we're using shutdown. We've got restrict mode, and we've got protect mode as well. So there is different versions there that we can use. We'll leave it as shutdown for now. And what we'll do is we'll verify that these changes have taken place. So as you can see now, we have a maximum allowed MAC addresses of 5, which is good. So if John then decided to plug back in his Xbox, he wouldn't get the port shut down, because it'll basically add the second MAC address, which is what we want. We left the violation as shut down, and we've got dynamic learning of MAC addresses. So going back to the presentation, we'll switch now to verification commands. Some of these we've actually already done, but we'll just quickly run through what I've wrote down here just to kind of show you guys the information contained within. So if we do, let's just exit back to outer global. We do show VLAN. And it's like show VLAN brief, but we get a little bit more information. You know, we can see that we're using the data VLAN 50 for what we need. We've got VLAN 1 that's active, but we're not using anything. No ports are in that. All unused ports are in the black hole VLAN, which is what we want. So if we do show IP interface brief, which we've used a lot, show IP interface brief, we basically get the output of all the interfaces, including VLAN interfaces, which are logical interfaces on this device. So we've also used the third command, show interface, then the interface followed by switch port. So we'll do it for this one. Just give me a second. Oh god, sorry, just get that topology back up. So yeah, we'll do show, was it interface brief? I just forgot what it was then. Show, yeah, so show interface Ethernet 01 switch port, and this lets you know if it's a switch port and the configurations that are currently on that. We've got stuff to do with PVLANs, which are private VLANs. That's a whole different topic itself, so we won't go into that today. We've also pinged the the devices, so we verified connectivity throughout. We also did a little bit of troubleshooting, which you guys found quite useful. The show IP SSH command will issue it, but this is what I wanted to show you today, but I'll cover it in another video. Oops, show IP, it should be on there, show IP. Maybe it's not on this device, in fact. Should it be on? Yeah, so it's on the switch. So this is something that I wanted to show you today, more to do with, you know, when you're accessing, when you've set up keys for SSH access and change versions and stuff. So we'll look at this maybe another time. So use SSH to log into the switch. We're not going to do that today. We did the show IP HTTP server status and secure status. We saw how to turn off HTTP and why to turn it off, and how to enable secure HTTP. So we also did the show port security and the interface, and we changed the machine, and then we tested it again to verify that connectivity was restored after we re-enabled the interface. And again, we're not going to use the PC to test HTTPS access today. We'll cover that another day. We can also do one command that I did do, which is, let me just get back on here, show MAC address table. And it's a very useful command on switches to see the MAC addresses and where they're registered, and the static or if they're statically or dynamically mapped. So that's another useful command. And I believe that's it. So thanks for watching, guys. It's been I've enjoyed myself anyway on this first live session, one of many that I hope you guys will be following me on and hopefully learning something from. If there's anything that you guys want to see or interested in, do let me know, and I'll try and put together something like this, and we can run through it together and see how far we get, maybe a little bit of troubleshooting. I will be putting this video on my blog as well. You can see the address there on the screen, synac.co.uk. And along with the video on the blog, I'll be posting a quiz with a few questions that I've put together based on this video today. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and let me just see if we've got any questions before we finish off. So yeah, apologies for leaving the PDF on the screen. We're now going back to the CLI. Good job I looked at the screen and rectified that. Thanks for pointing it out. So we've got another question here. Are network security jobs and cybersecurity jobs the same? If not, what are the differences? Can one do the other job? So that's a very good question. I think, to keep things simple, cybersecurity and network security as a whole is the same thing, but just different avenues, if you like. I mean, there's lots of break-offs. So you've got like cybersecurity analysts that are looking at you know, the analyzing data, etc. You've got network security engineers that, you know, are configuring devices with security features, i.e. ASAs, firewalls, you know, IPSs, IDSs. Then you've got network security consultants, which is, you know, pretty much what I am at Cisco. And you know, we not only configure the latest and greatest, obviously, from Cisco, but we also consult and provide that professional service to our customers. So, you know, you can start to see that, you know, things start to branch off very quickly. So what I'd say is, make sure if you're looking for jobs, you can you know, clearly define what it is that you would be doing in the position, and clearly define whether it is something that you want to do. Don't just think because it says cyber security or something to do with security, it's going to be, you know, configuring devices all day, or analyzing traffic, or, you know, doing pen testing, etc. So, you know, make sure you look at the job descriptions fully. So I think, yeah, thank you for that question. Hamid has said, nice, great idea, live lab. I believe that's supposed to say. So thank you, and I hope that you guys subscribe and follow me as I plan on doing more. Yes, shout out to Molly. Thanks for watching the started from the bottom video. Glad that you're watching it, and I hope, yeah, everyone, shout out to Duan for doing the interview with me. If you guys have not watched that, it is on my blog. You will be able to find the videos on my blog. But yeah, thank you. So I'm going to end this now, but thank you for watching, and again, look out for upcoming broadcasts which I plan on doing live again. Thank you for watching. Make sure that you tell all your friends or those that are interested. Bye for now.